ACDSee Photo Studio Ultimate 2026. I'm going to go over the program in detail, all of the new features, in addition to things that I use day to day with this program. I've used this for many years at this point, but I was sent this code for the specific version of the program from their marketing agency. They had no say in the content of the video, so keep that in mind. On the top right, we have the main functions of this program. Manage is for managing your media. Media itself, which is seeing a big list of what's in the database. That can be photos or videos. View, which is good for culling photos and just looking through a set of photos or videos. Develop, which is non-destructive editing for raw files mostly, but you can use that with JPEGs and such if you want. We've got the edit tab, which is raster-based destructive editing that has its own set of features. And then we've got the people tab, which is using the AI face detect in addition to being able to manage people, applying names, but you can also do that in the view mode as well. There's a dashboard tab, which has a bunch of information about your database. So in that case, you can see what cameras you've used, what settings that you tend to use. They added this new homepage feature to give you quick access to certain functions of the program. So find duplicates. It's maybe a little bit lesser known feature of ACDSee's software, but it's pretty convenient. So you can click on that, for example. Yeah, so in this case, I do have a few duplicate photos in my sample set. Pretty cool. And what it does is it searches based on image data rather than just file name. That way, if you do have different file names, it'll still find those duplicates. So I've got multiple duplicates. Then you can decide if you want to remove one or not. If you want to index your photo archive all at once, I don't know if it really applies to the face detect and the AI keywording, but besides that, you can do a index all at once to look through your photo archive just to get started. They have a built-in search function. So for example, I put my name in there. I can do a quick search and then it shows anything inside my photo archive that relates to it. So for example, this specific image, if I look at the EXIF information, the copyright notice and the creator notice have my name in it, so that's where that pulled that information. So we can jump to the media tab pretty quickly. This gives you a big list of what is available in your database at the moment. You can select things, select multiple things. You can go to the view tab and view that group of selections. Pretty basic. I don't know if anything was changed in here specifically. At least that's basically what you can do in here. You can filter and sort and view. In Manage, you have a ton of options, a ton of functionality. A new enhancement is that with the tabs, you can apply adjustments, export at the same time with multi-threading, and that works with their activity manager. So for example, if I want to export some of my face photos, I can do that, select a bunch of them, and then go into File and Export, and then just do a default JPEG. I'm going to create a subfolder in this folder for exports. Click export, and then we can see in the queue it's already doing that, but then I can jump to another one. I can go into here and start doing develop mode stuff. Assuming I want to adjust some of the view here pretty quickly so that it happens. Anyways, that's good. This is another new feature where you can have a slider split view, or you can turn it off if you want. So I just developed that. I can go back to manage and then right click, process, copy settings, and then select what I want to copy, and then also paste that in here to these ones, process, paste settings. That's applying those adjustments to all of those photos while it's still exporting other photos in a different tab. It's going to be a really big productivity enhancement just in that feature alone for the multi-threading. If you go into tools and then options, you can adjust a lot about the program. If you want face detection and AI keywords to happen in the background, you can click this to let it do its thing when the computer's running, but you're not using it. And there's a lot of stuff to change here if you want to make it work how you want. Another big adjustment for 2026 is video metadata. So I have a bunch of videos now in my sample archive, and I want to look at information about those. I go into properties. So we've got the bit of information here, the video tab, but you can also see a larger view on that by selecting this drop down, and then you can do all video metadata. Here's a really old AVI file, samples per second, and then it says what type of encoding. So in this case, MJPEG, the color space, the chroma subsampling. I do a ton of video work, so it is nice to see all of this in ACDSee now. Another important aspect of the program, this isn't really new, but it does relate to the new video metadata, is that if you want to sort, you can sort by EXIF information that applies to photos, but it now applies to video. So for example, if I wanted to sort by chroma subsampling, I can do that. Let's click that, click OK, and now if we look at the information and then we find Grimble subsampling. That's 420. Scroll down quite a bit and you can see it's 422 in this case of this old AVI file. So let's select some samples with people photos in them. In this case, a bunch of pictures of myself. In the view tab, we've got face information. You can toggle that if you want. And then you can also adjust it inside the view tab as well, which is cool. And click a picture that's not as awkward. So in this case, if I want to adjust faces, I can reposition it, I can remove it, I can re-add it as I want. It doesn't have to be named, but I can also name it based on what exists in the database. Very cool. So if this, for example, didn't work, I can select it, and it's relatively quick to add the face. So a nice little quality of life improvement for that feature. Let me go back to a standard group of images to look at. Go to cosplay and conventions, go back to the view tab. You can see I found a face in this case. Didn't find a face, but I can add it. That is me. I guess it thinks that's a face, but technically not. We can remove it and deselect that if we want, so we don't have to see it. I use this view for culling images. It's pretty quick to go through. You can simply scroll and it's decently fast. You can zoom in easily. Yeah, let's go into develop. In the develop tab, we've got this new split view, so you can toggle that on and off if you want. So for example, if I want to get an idea of what it looks like, you can obviously leave that. You can still use the show original if you want, or get an idea of how things have changed dynamically with that nice little split view. Very cool. I like it. You toggle that off. Can reset things if we want. In the develop tab, there are now AI-based presets that you can click on and get a general adjustment, which you can also apply other adjustments afterwards. So for example, I'm going to go into the AI portrait functionality. Let's brighten the skin here. See, that did make a little bit of a change. Let's click the new split view feature. Now we can see how things have changed with this image. It did definitely brighten it up. You can undo that if you want. And let's try another one, AI enhance. So that is definitely a change. And like I said, you can go back in here and make adjustments to the actual changes and still see a different view here. If you want to use the show original, that still works. Go back and make these changes as well. Yeah, pretty cool. And then you've got your history. So if you want to go back to your original image, you can do that. You can undo those changes. And now I'm back to full default. They have the AI masking tools now. So if I wanted to remove the background, for example, I can do that. And then we've got our little adjustment slider thing, or I can turn that off. The split view does show the masks and stuff as well. It's cool. I can go in here and adjust the exposure of the background. So if I wanted to brighten up the background to potentially isolate it more easily, I can do that. And then of course you can still adjust the mask itself if you want to improve how it looks. For example, go in here and change the mask so I can make it a little cleaner. And then if I wanted to add a new mask, we can select, for example, the subject and then apply different things to that. So if I wanted to brighten things up, change the vibrance of it, make it pop more, saturation, whatever. It seems like a pretty quick way to make thumbnail images for videos and stuff, like what I tend to do quite a bit. And these are non-destructive edits, so I can easily just go back to the manage area and those should be saved. In this case, let's try copying the process settings, and then I'm going to paste them into one of the other images. Let's try the CR2 raw. So process and paste. Let's go back into the develop tab. Now we look at the masking. This is going to be interesting. So look at the mask. Now it works per image, and you can copy and paste those develop settings, and then it recalculates the mask. That's awesome. That's a nice feature benefit where you can copy those settings specifically in this non-destructive editing aspect of the program, and then it reapplies it to that specific image. That's huge. And it looks similar, but still it's specific to this image. If we zoom in on this image, you can see a fair bit of noise in there, especially on the shirt. So we can go into the edit tab. This is a new feature. They have the AI denoise, which is more targeted as far as I understand it, based on that AI functionality versus the standard denoise. So down here we can click noise, and then we've got a list of options. We've got the camera noise removal, which is standard, median, despeckle, and now we've got this AI denoise. So I'm going to click on that. It's going to calculate things, and then afterwards I can use the strength slider to adjust how much I want going on. There we go. So this is 100%. Obviously I can adjust it. We look at the shirt. So there is a lot of color noise. Go out to 100% and it's gone. But obviously doing 100% is a little extreme. So we can kind of vary the default versus fair amount of reduction while not going crazy with it. And obviously you've got this other functionality here that's a bit of a duplication compared to what's in the non-destructive editor. So if you want to use it in here, you can. This is raster-based editing for the edit tab. Another improvement here is hair selection. I mean, that my hair is pretty basic, but we'll try it out. There we go. Jump to the face. Now we have a bunch of options here. They added this splotch removal tool. So if we increase that, actually look like, in my case, it's adding splotch, but potentially at lower levels, it'll find some color and deal with it on the face. Let's go into the hair thing. So it's automatically selecting the hair area based on the AI information. So if I wanted colorful hair, I could do that. Add sharpness to the hair. If I wanted like a very soft looking hair. So in case I wanted to see what I would look like in a cosplay or didn't want to wear a wig and do a cosplay, I could adjust the hair to at least match the color of the character. So in that case, yeah, look at the before and after. So we can edit the hair mask and you can see the selection that it made. You can adjust that if it didn't work perfectly. So there is a bit of area that it didn't pick based on the glasses. So if I wanted to add a little bit more, I could do that. There's the AI points thing. So based on the face adjustment, you can adjust all of that functionality to it. So maybe the brow was a little off, or here we can change that. So there's a little bit of additional space on the side here. There we go. So in this case, I can go and adjust the shape and add a very unique jaw. You can do the Giga Chad look. There's a lot of function in here if you're into that. Very cool. Obviously, it depends on what you're trying to do with this, but I do a lot of cosplay photography. I could see potentially adjusting hair color to more fit the character that they're cosplaying. So that's a nice little addition. Let's go into the people tab. So in here, you've got named and unnamed people. I went through here and named a few people. Obviously, there's a bunch of my own self-portraits, put a few cosplayers that I know. Go in here, you can see how that works. We have functions over here where you can see the full image or just see the face to verify things. Go back, go into the unnamed area, go in here and add names. Obviously, some of them are not actually people, but that is a face technically. So this is Yumo photo. He's a cosplay photographer. Press enter and I applied that name to that face. Now we go back in the named area, we can look at that and then we can adjust if it shows the full photo or not. Go back. They added a group function to this. This is a new feature for 2026. So we can sort by name itself. We can sort by face count. So more faces will be at the bottom, but you can adjust that if you want to assume. You can group backward. So more faces on the top. And then suggestions. In this case, people without suggestions, people with suggestions. Let's go in here. And down here it is correct. Found an additional face photo for me. Approve that. Yeah, very cool. So there is a lot of potential function and use cases for the face tab. You can also cull images in here. That's going to actually physically delete one of the photos. If I wanted to delete this very awkward looking image of me, I can do that now in the face tab. Let's get rid of that picture. And it says, do you really want to delete it? Because it is literally deleting it. It'll put it in the recycle bin on Windows. So that is gone. Very awkward photo. They did change the dashboard functionality for this version of the program. Let's click that. So based on your database information, you have a lot of cool statistics. Click the overview. So in this specific example with all of my sample images, which is around 1,400 or so, maybe 2,000 it looks like. It's not a huge collection, but it at least gives you an idea. So you can do monthly photo counts, you can do yearly photo counts. You can see the most used camera and the set of images. The M50 number of cameras I've got in here, 37. Click database, gives you more information on this, where the database file is located, the size of it. Click cameras, so this is a new view. A lot of cool information here. You've got graphs that show you what is what. So the Z5, I've got quite a few files in here of that. The M50, the Pentax IST-DS, that was my original DSLR. And then you've got photos by aperture, shutter speed, and ISO. It's a nice little breakdown of all of that information. Most used aperture in this sample set, 2.8, 1/100th of a second, shutter speed, ISO 100. Yeah, very cool bit of information. And they did change this up, added more for this version of the program. The Files sub-tab, you can see the different types of images, RAW mostly in here, but I do have some JPEGs, PNGs, the exports and things that I made. Yeah, very cool little bit of additional functionality. I'm looking forward to seeing this once I fully scan my photo video archive, kind of see what cameras and things that I used over the years. Should be very interesting. Now I'm going to go over some functions and features that I do use day to day, or I would like to use eventually when I fully scan my entire photo video archive. First thing is the AI keywording. This is potentially a very powerful tool in addition to all that face detection stuff, but this is separate. So for example, I did run all of the AI keywording on my sample selection of photos and images. So if you go into properties and then organize, we've got the AI keywords area. Click that and you can see what it found for different images. So in this very unusual looking 360-degree image, it found nature, tree, person, clothing. And this one found eyeglasses, outdoor, tree, person. Now it's not perfect by any means, but it tends to find a good amount of stuff. With the AI keywords, you can do it in here, but you can also see them in the view tab, which is a little bit easier. So in this case, it said computer, but it's technically a VHS player with a TV screen in the background. You got a person with glasses. That's correct. Look around a little bit. So just some of the things that it finds: architecture, building, house, nature, flowers, sky, tree. Yeah, so it'd be pretty generic, but there is a good amount of stuff. So it did consider this an animal, which I think is reasonable. It called this one a sculpture, which is also true. But as we look through these images, found a toy, which is correct for the most part. Another toy. Boat. Did find the duck. Found water. This is a very powerful tool on a full photo archive. So if you want to find specific things and look through your archive, potentially use things in the future from all of your existing work, make collages of a similar thing, I could see the AI keywording being very useful. So obviously it's not perfect. It's not going to find everything, but it is a nice little productivity benefit potentially. I'm looking forward to scanning my entire photo archive at some point for a future video. It does have some simple ways to do focus stacking, HDR images. They're very basic but relatively functional. It's going to depend on your expectations and kind of what you'd want to get out of it. Here's a quick example with 3 images. I'll show you some results from the larger one as well. So in this case, go into process and then we're going to focus stack. It's going to do its thing. Look at the photos. There isn't much in the way of adjustments, clearly, but let's click merge. It's doing calculations and stuff in the background. Another feature that we can use to get an idea is I select 2 images and then I go into tools, compare images. This is a nice feature, especially for video work that I do. And then you can clearly see there is stuff in focus on this one that is not on this one. But this in focus is also in focus over here. So it's a nice little addition. And then you can see this is in focus, this is not in focus. So it did stack those 3 images pretty decently well. Here's a focus stack of the larger one. So I can select that and then select one of the images in here. Then do another comparison. So tools, compare images. And then as we scroll through here, you can see the memory card is definitely in focus here, but not in there. We scroll down, same situation. I should have taken a few more photos down here because it's a little bit out of focus, but still better than this one. You can clearly see the difference in the text. Scroll up to the top. Also here in the Olympus text, big difference. They have a very simple high dynamic range photo feature. So I can select multiple images. For example, I've got a bunch of different exposures of the same scene, and then I can do the same thing of process, go into HDR, and then it's going to do some initial calculations. Again, there isn't a lot in the way of adjustment, but you can do black and white, detailed, dramatic, natural. So let's just do a natural preset, click merge. Got the HDR image, and then I'll take the best standard image. We're going to compare these two. Again, tools and compare images. Zoom in. There's clearly a difference here. So we scroll around. Obviously, it's not perfect up close, but there is a lot more information in the HDR image. Another thing you can do is merge images as a big photo. So for example, I've got all of these. You can use the process and then photo merge. It's going to go through these and make a large panorama or bokeh panorama, whatever you want to call it. So I did already make a result. I'm going to take one of these and then just take the standard image, for example. Let's do another comparison. So here we've got the one single standard image and then the big collection of images. Let's zoom in a bit. You can see a clear difference. So there's a lot more information on the top of this one. Scroll over to the side and yeah, so that's way over there. A lot more information. So if you're into that, know it's available. It's not going to be super adjustable, but it is an option. A lot of what I do personally is use this management functionality in addition to editing raw files. So you can group images by camera, for example. You can sort by EXIF information, lens model, whatever you want to do there. You can use these different views. So thumbnail, detail, film strip view. I'm going to click on one of these, you can do that. And then you've got a bunch of search functionality. There's a quick search. So for example, I search on my name, it's using EXIF information, potentially face information with that name. And then we've got advanced search. So if you want to add criteria to the search, now we've got the multimedia video search. So if I wanted to search on specific video information like bitrate, I can do that. Let me find one that would be a little easier. So frame rate, I add that to it, and now I can type the value in. There are some 20 frames per second videos in here. So these are all the 20 frames per second videos. This is an old AVI file from an old camera. Actually, my original decent Digicam had some very limited video capabilities. So if I go into properties and then look at the video metadata, we can see the frame rate of 20 frames per second. So that did a search on that frame rate, and now I've got all of those in there. So if I wanted to leave that search, I can go to another tab, go back into here. If I say, for example, I wanted to take all of these, cut these, and then paste them in a new folder, 20 FPS, and then I can paste those in there. Now they're in there instead. So that's nice with the tabs, the ability to move things around, search on things. There's a lot of function to this multi-tabbed management of photos and videos. So you can search on individual folders if you want. So if I only wanted to search on this cosplay folder, and let's say, for example, let's try to find some ACDSee metadata, people, search on people in here, contains, equals, ends with, starts with, a lot of stuff. I don't know if I'm in here. So actually I am inside that folder. Yeah, I'm tagged in these images. So you can search on specific folders, search for specific people in specific folders. There's just a lot to it. Cosplay folder, the Scott person, and then the results of that search. There is a lot to go over with this program. I tried to cover all the new stuff, or at least most of the new stuff that I had noticed, in addition to some of the things that I use day to day. It's very functional. I like the tabbed interface. I like being able to manage images and things and search on things and sort and group things by different cameras, and just a lot as I do day to day videography and such for my YouTube channel, with photography as usually the main subject of my videos. Using a program like this is definitely very helpful for that, especially when I do collections of equipment videos and talking about a bunch of things together rather than like just one camera, one lens type of thing. Anyways, it's a lot, and I could keep rambling about everything that you could potentially do with it. I use this day to day. It is my alternative to all of the other programs like Adobe stuff. Again, keep in mind that the marketing agency of ACDSee sent me a code to this program so I could try it out and make a video on it. I do use it day to day. I have paid for the software in the past. They had no say in the content of the video, of course. So these are all my own opinions on it. Yeah. Anyways, hope you enjoyed the video on ACDSee Photo Studio Ultimate 2026 of the new features and stuff that I use day to day. Scott for Bonds, thanks.